The Dasha Mahavidyas in the Tantric context is trying to tell us. Ultimately, it is the Shakti. This is a woman in different stages of her life.
What would be the rationale behind these different forms?
Chinnamasta, the iconography, with her head cut off, she's drinking her own blood and she's doing all of this on a couple who's having sex. A person who does ayahuasca retreats told me he uses the Dasha Mahavidya mantras to stop certain entities during the ayahuasca ceremony when vampiric entities arise. He has tried Chinnamasta mantra. Entity just vanished.
Let's begin with Kali first.
She is Mahatandava Sakshini, Mahapralaya Sakshini. When the world is dissolved by Shiva, she has to wait until Shiva swallows the world, and it does not end until she swallows Shiva. That is how powerful Ma Kali is. She's so angry in the war that from her forehead comes out a Durga again. Even her earrings, if you observe, are little embryos.
Why are there so many people who are secretly invoking Ma Tara and Kali?
Each of these Devis have a specific yantra, and the most potent is the Shri yantra associated with Ma Lalita Tripura Sundari.
Shri Yantra is very central to the Shodashi worship. Tell us about Shri Yantra.
Even just merely glancing at it changes the neural pathways. The alpha and theta brain waves become higher, so you're in a more meditative mode.
Vinita Rashinkar is a renowned spiritual healer, writer and wellness expert with over 25 years of experience in Ayurveda, yoga, meditation and Tantra. She is the founding director of Sri Chakra Yantra Foundation and author of 6 acclaimed books on spirituality. As founder of Amara Vedic Wellness in Germany, she brings Vedic wisdom to a global audience, conducting retreats in Mauritius and Reunion Islands and leading meditation programs for Fortune 500 executives across Europe. Tripura Sundari, she is also known as Shodashi.
Look at the moon. You start with the Amavasya. You end with either the Purnima 15-day cycle. What comes after Panchadashi is the Shodashi, the 16th energy. The 16th Nitya of the moon is Ma Lalita, which is so powerful that invisible. Lalita's iconography shows she holds a sugarcane bow, the reference to Kama.
What is the origin story behind Bhairavi? She's naked, she's covered in snakes.
Snakes signify all the desires, and slowly she has to let go of one at a time.
This is another Kali-like. She's pulling out someone else's tongue this time.
It's a demon's tongue. Sadhana with Ma Varahi. She's definitely going to give you a lot of abundance. People want a certain home. Do a sadhana. Magically, it does become theirs.
As per Tantric astrology, every Mahavidya is linked with a planet. Tell me about it. Chanting these Mahavidya mantras on your own can be quite dangerous. There have been instances of people getting mad.
Because you don't know what energies you will bring to the forefront when you do it without a guidance.
We'd like to know some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to Navratri. Why is it that 9 days after Amavasya, the feminine becomes the most potent?
Energies of a woman going from stillness, from the darkness, energy is almost standstill. That's why you don't do yoga on an Amavasya.
Featured in Femina, Outlook, Asia Spa and Vogue, she is celebrated worldwide for her talks on Sri Vidya, Yantra and Chakras. In today's spiritual episode of the Body to Being podcast, we are delighted to welcome Vinita Rashinkar. Namaste Vinita ji.
Shri Matre Namaha Shloka ji.
Thank you for coming all the way from Dubai and to be a part of the Body to Being. We've been really looking forward to this conversation. Today's topic is on Dasha Mahavidya. It is a very fascinating tradition within the Shakta and the Tantric initiations. I think much like our viewers, I don't know very much about it. The idea for this podcast is to have this conversation unfold as a masterclass, which can be replete with stories, practical tips. And the last we spoke, you said it's replete with occult mysticism, so we love that. So let's get started.
The Dasha Mahavidya story starts with Daksha Prajapati, who's a very powerful king, and he has a daughter, Sati. She falls in love with Shiva. Shiva, as you know, is the one who goes away for years on a meditation tour, and Daksha is not very happy with her choice, but she goes ahead and still marries Shiva. And Daksha wants to prove that he's an unworthy son-in-law, and he announces a very, very powerful yajna. He invites every other devata, but he does not invite Shiva. And Sati is angry at her husband being left out. And she insists that she will attend, that as a daughter, she does not need an invitation to go. And Shiva tries to convince her and says, look, anyway, that's going to be inauspicious. Without me, Yajna is not going to be fruitful. So why are you going to waste your time? And she thinks that he's questioning her judgment. And she gets very angry. And Shiva doesn't know how to deal with that anger. So he's trying to escape. And that's when she places one Devi in each of the 10 directions. Because in Sanatana, we talk of 10 directions. In the Western system, it's 4 cardinal, 4 ordinal. Here, we also have realms up and down. In
The
our
lokas, you mean?
yeah, so there are some lokas up
Yeah.
and there are some down,
Yeah.
right? So those are also considered directions for us. So that's why it's
Okay.
considered 10 directions. She manifests herself as different devis to protect each direction so that he cannot pass through. So the first Devi to emerge, and the most ferocious, the most powerful, is Ma Kali. So that is the origin of the Dasha Mahavidyas. So the first Devi that she manifests as, Sati manifests as Ma Kali. Second is Ma Tara. Third is Lalita Tripura Sundari. Fourth is Bhuvaneshwari, Bhairavi. Then we have Chinnamasta. After that, we have Dhumavati, Baglamukhi, Matangi, and finally Kamalatmika. So these are the 10 Dasha Mahavidyas. 10. Dasha is 10.
Okay.
Mahavidya. So Vidya essentially means any knowledge which is related to a female goddess. So that is the origin story of the Dasha Mahavidyas. Now, within the Dasha Mahavidyas, you will notice that we have some very Ugra Devis. You have got Kali and you've got Bhairavi, Bagalamukhi, and Dhumavati
Dhumavati.
is not really fierce, but she's something that we want to avoid. So, for example, Ma Kamalatmika is the Tantric version of Lakshmi. We've got Matangi, who is Tantric Saraswati. Then we've got Lalita Tripura Sundari, the height of Saumyata, the beauty, the pleasures of living, and all of that. And there are some which are Ugra Saumya. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that, which is like every other being on the planet. Because everyone has to have these two sides.
Sides.
It's the yin and
Yeah.
the yang. You can't, for example, a mother can't just be benign and loving, because when her children are in danger, she has to be fierce. So these are the qualities that they put out through the Dasha Mahavidyas.
Okay. When she takes these different forms, so 10 forms,
Yes.
why are they so distinct and different in their nature? So you will have someone who's Saumya, kind, compassionate, and then you will have someone who's so fierce and bold. What would be the rationale behind these different forms that she manifests into?
So up until now, till the Tantra texts came into being, we were following the Vedic tradition. The Vedic tradition pretty much excluded the women. So the Tantra wanted to actually put out all the different aspects of a woman's nature, starting from how she can be the most benevolent mother to how she can be the warrior goddess or the devourer of time itself, which is Ma Kali. So to show the various moods, the various events that happen in a woman's life, and to show the importance of Shakti. Because until then, Shakti was just something that the pagans worshipped. It never really reeked into the Vedas so much. And then again with Tantra, there was like this awakening of the Shakti. That is the point that the Dashamahavidya Tantra texts are trying to make. That a woman should feel that nothing can stop her from deciding what she wants to do with her life. So, like for example, if you take Baglamukhi,
Yeah.
she's the one who has the tongue of her enemy in her hand. She's literally holding his tongue. So that is the kind of power. And we are talking about Ma Kali, for example. Just look at her iconography, so immensely powerful that one of the most famous rock bands is using an image as their logo of Kali with her tongue lolling out.
And you also mentioned Rolling Stones.
Yeah, that is Rolling Stones.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the logo of the Rolling Stones. They have the tongue out, right?
What are some of these other extreme or rather shocking forms of rituals that happen around Dasha Mahavidya? Because 2-3 instances that I came across was there is animal sacrifice in a lot of Kali temples. One being Chamundi, I think, Chamundi in Mysore.
Chamundi, they
stopped
don't do.
doing,
Yes.
but they used to do it at
They
one
used
point,
to,
no?
yes.
Okay. There's that. Even in
In
my
Kamakhya, they do till today.
yeah,
Even in the temples in Nepal,
Correct.
the Shakti temples.
yeah. They do that, right? And then there's doing sadhana on the cremation grounds. There's apparently also offering leftover or impure food to the goddess, which
That's
again
correct.
sort of demolishes the conventional norm of only offering pure food. So what are some of the other shocking rituals of such nature?
So there used to be something called, in the Tantric tradition, ritual called Gana Chakra, where it would be like what you would call orgies in modern times, but it was meant to, again, not look at desire from a point of view only of physical passion, but to make it into something more, transcend the physical, actually just go beyond it to a point where it becomes a spiritual experience. So that is something where there would be, like, all the Panchamakaras would be available at that point. So there'd be drink, there would be meat, there'd be like
Pakoras.
flesh eating, all of that. And with the macabre skulls, and there'd be, all of these orgies going on, and in a chakra, in a circular form, which again we can relate to how Garba is done also in a circular form. So it just shows the cyclical nature of life and death, of the seasons, of harvest, of everything. So again, when we talk of the smashana rituals, it takes us back to Tantra, because Tantra couldn't be practiced in the city limits in those days, because the Vedic people would still be looking and they would look down upon it. So the smashanas were outside. The charnel grounds were outside where people lived. So one could quietly go there and do the tantric rituals. So then that's how it gathered ground. And also remember that smashanas are places of great energy, because it's like energy is leaving the body and energy is lurking around. So if you're able to overcome that one fear of death, if you're then you've transcended pretty much everything there is in life itself. So there's a deeper meaning to all of it. It's not just what we see at the surface level.
Asha, tell me something, that when you have such imagery, does it also in a way ask people to model that kind of act? बिकॉज हम कहते हैं ना कि भगवानों को अगर तुम एक तरीके से देखते हैं, इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड फॉर पीपल टू इम्यूलेट हाउ दे sit, how they are within themselves, and even the exterior, because we, in terms of clothing, in terms of ornaments, all of that. So when you have such extreme imagery, like orgies, for example, cremation grounds, I understand. This is very extreme sexuality, which is looked down upon in conventional society. And even from the point of view of Runanu Bandhan, kehte hain na, that you shouldn't be, in our culture, we don't promote dating all that much. Yes. We don't promote a lot of being physically demonstrative, because every time your hand or your body is coming in contact with someone else, is the Runanu Bandha keeps increasing. True. So then why would you have such imagery?
It's because the orgies are not with strangers. It's with the one partner who you think of as the other half of you, where the Shiva and the Shakti come together. The Shiva Shaktiyaika Rupini that you become, the one form of Shiva and Shakti, which can be your monogamous partner. It doesn't have to be some stranger. So perhaps the word orgy brought to your mind strangers. It isn't that. It's with the one individual who you are so comfortable with that you can actually make it into something spiritual. But you're using all the other elements of drink or the pleasure of eating flesh, and all of those things.
The Panchamakaras. What are the Panchamakaras again?
The Panchamakaras are, it starts with alcohol. So it's Madhya, Matsa, which is fish. Then there's Mamsa. Then there is Maithuna, which is the union, the sexual union. And then there is Mudra meaning it's parched grain. So these are the 5 M's, the Panchamakaras. They all have a subtle meaning. For example, the liquor that we talk of, it could be the soma, it could be the nectar, which brings about a transcendent consciousness. So when we talk of mamsa, for example, it's control of the tongue, because the tongue is just such a fleshy part. Yeah. So it's like that. So there are lots of meanings attached to all of this in the tantric tradition. So again, it depends on what lens you're putting on and looking through it. So for some, it could just be, this is just completely irrational. Yeah. It's like almost antinomian, rebellious, whatever. Yeah. For others, it could be one way of saying that nothing is sacred, nothing is profane, because everything is her creation. So who are we to say, like you brought up Uchishta, right? In the Vedic tradition, whatever we offered had to be pure. Yeah. So this was turning that around on its head. We have Uchishta Matangi, we have Uchishta Ganapati. So Uchishta Ganapati is shown in a very sexual way, where he has Shakti sitting on his left lap. So where he's holding her left breast and he's actually penetrated her. So that's the imagery, and that's what it says about Uchishta Ganapati. That's why she's sitting on his left lap. And all of these things exist in our tantric texts. It's not something that is only visible in the temples of Khajuraho. But the point here is that we should not just look at it as a physical act. It goes much beyond that. It's about saying no transgression is good or bad in itself. That if it is done with a consciousness, with a presence of mind, of devotion, of sadhana, then it becomes an act of prayer. It becomes an act of becoming one with the source.
So we've had a beautiful introduction to the Dasha Mahavidyas. Please take us through each of the forms of the Dasha Mahavidyas in details. Let's begin with Kali first.
Yes, Ma Kali. She is the devourer of time. So potent that she is Mahatandava Sakshini, Mahapralaya Sakshini. She's witness. So when the world is dissolved by Shiva, she has to wait until Shiva swallows the world, and it does not end until she swallows Shiva. That is how powerful Ma Kali is. And that is why she is the devourer of time. And Ma Kali, her origin stories are many, but each one is the same, that she emerges when the cosmic order or the Rita is being shaken. So when she comes is when everything is back in balance. So let's look at some of her origin stories. So the first time we see her in the Devi Mahatmya is when Vishnu, during the time of creation, Brahma is trying to create. Vishnu is in deep sleep, in Yoga Nidra. And from his ear wax come out the two demons of Madhu and Kaitaba. Brahma can't do anything because he can't wake Vishnu out of the sleep. He has to go to Ma Shakti. And she comes in the form of Yoga Nidra and wakes him up. And then when he wakes up, she is able to go and fight Madhu Kaitaba. So that is one of the origin stories, or as Yoga Nidra. Then there is another one where this is in the Vamana Tantra or the Vamana Purana, where Shiva teases her that she's Kali, she's dark. So our colorism doesn't just start with us; it's been there for a long time. And she does so much tapasya. She gets very angry with Shiva. She does so much tapasya that she becomes Gauri, fair. Yeah. And she becomes like the manifestation of a very pretty, beautiful woman for Shiva. So that's another origin story. And then when she's in the dark form,
Yeah.
she's Kaushiki. And she's so angry in the war that from her forehead comes out Durga again.
So
Another form
Kali,
of-
Kali is essentially Parvati, right? We're looking at the different forms of Parvati.
Yes, or Sati or Parvati. So they're in different lives, in different janmas, as it were. Yeah, but they're the manifestations of the same Devi.
You know, the Kali's tongue sticking out, for
Yes.
example, that story
Yes.
is a famous story because two individuals have narrated the story to me on our podcast. And they're like, she sticks her tongue out because she's going after Raktabij, the demon, trying to kill him. And then there is Shiva who comes in between, lies down, ki ab to tum marna nahi. And then she sort of, I think accidentally steps over Shiva and then sticks her tongue out thinking, oh, I've done a mistake.
With Ma Kali, there is no accidental mistake because when she sticks her tongue out, it's because she has to lick off all the evil from the world. That is their way of depicting it with the Rakta Bija image, where each drop which falls needs to be licked off. And why she is not embarrassed or ashamed, it's not lajja, is because even whether she puts her right foot forward or left foot forward, pratyalida or alida has a meaning in the iconography. So if she's put her right foot forward on Shiva when she's standing, it means that it shows it's the Dakshina Marga, which is the Dakshinachara Tantra wise. And if it's the left foot forward, it's the Vama Marga. So it's all very studied, it's all wonderfully defined iconography. So it's not lajja. Why would the devourer of time have embarrassment or shame? This is a story which patriarchy makes up again.
Mistake.
It's not a mistake. She does it with volition.
Okay.
It's very clear that she needs to show Shiva his place sometimes. And it's patriarchy making up the story because they don't want women to feel that they can step over a man. Because I see this all the time. Men saying, don't practice Sri Vidya, and telling other men, don't allow your wives to practice Sri Vidya because she will become very masculine. And the example they give, and several videos making the rounds now, which say that they give the example of Lalita and say, see how she subdued men. Your wife will become like that if you allow her to become a Lalita sadhaka. Because Lalita was a very famous Sri Vidya adept. And then, of course, they tell the men, don't ever do Sri Vidya, you'll become very effeminate. And also, one very interesting thing that I discovered when I was writing my Dasha Mahavidya book was that all along patriarchy has been telling us
Yeah.
that all the Dasha Mahavidyas have a consort, that
Yeah.
there is a god linked to them. But if you read where the Dasha Mahavidyas actually appear, whether it's in the Rudra Yamala Tantra or the various Dasha Mahavidya Tantra texts itself, they have no consorts and they have no offspring.
No children.
No.
Because in conventional society, we say a woman is supposedly complete if she's A, married, B, if she has a child.
That's why the entire Dashamaha Vidya is subverting all of society and turning it on its head and saying that a woman is sampurna. She's complete in herself. She needs nobody to fulfill her and she needs nothing to complete her. A guna that we have to look at is not the guna that Kali embodies so much as what she's trying to remove. So, for Ma Kali, when we talk of the guna, it's always that she's trying to remove the inertia, the tamas from us. So, because when she awakens, things start to move. And then when we go into the other goddesses, we will see how they then turn into Rajas and then eventually Sattva with Kamalatmika. So it's almost like a graph where you start with Tamas, and it's the same even with the Navratri. So that's why we start with Mahakali and end with Mahasaraswati. The movement from Tamas to Sattva.
Why?
Because that's the inherent nature of how one moves in the spiritual path. Because initially, when you start off, you're a little, not comfortable with sadhana. You don't want to spend time. You just want all the phala, you want the siddhis, but you're not willing to do the work. And that's because your mind, body, spirit, all the three together are in a state of inertia. So something has to prod you. And that is what Ma Kali brings, that she will use that prod and then move you towards action.
Okay.
And then further on, you will see that it goes into a Rajasic mode and then finally to bring about a balance.
Okay. Okay.
There are many different variations of her iconography. She's got the 50 skulls around her. There's supposed to even be embryos of babies because she's like, after all, a mother. So that and the 50 alphabets of the Sanskrit language itself, and then even the severed hands which she wears as a skirt, because see, we use our hands the most to do karma. So that's all the karma she's carrying for all of us, that she's wearing as a belt. So each thing has a meaning and a purpose. And even her earrings, if you observe, are little embryos.
Oh.
Yeah.
Also because it's the primordial form of
True.
the Devi, right? So
Of-
everything is in the primordial.
Exactly.
What is the mantra for Kali?
So mantra for Kali is, of course, clean. But I would say be judicious. Let us be judicious in putting out these bijas, because bijas usually need to come from a guru. But in today's world of internet, everyone can find it everywhere. But the fact still remains that unless you get it as an initiation, you will not know many of the attributes of the mantra. So perhaps it's just another thing that you chant or another thing that you say.
Okay.
And it doesn't really lead you towards any siddhi.
Okay. What about the yantra for Kali?
There is a Kali yantra. So each of these Devis have a specific yantra. And the most potent of all the yantras is the Shri yantra, which is the one associated with Ma Lalita Tripura Sundari, the third of the manifestations of Dasha Mahavidya. Because the story goes that Shiva created 64 yantras to benefit humankind. And when he offered it to humanity, Parvati, she asks, how typically a woman would ask, what's in it for me? So he says, okay, here it is. I'm giving you the one from which every other yantra can be extracted. So this is the blueprint, the cosmic blueprint. And he gives her the Shri Yantra. And also this reminds me, I think this is it'll be of great interest to you. I am guiding a person who does ayahuasca retreats, and he told me that there are times when he uses the Dasha Mahavidya mantras to stop certain entities during the ayahuasca ceremony. So I thought that will be very interesting because he gave the example of when vampiric entities arise. He has tried the Chinnamasta mantra. His guru said to try the Chinnamasta mantra because it's the blood, the connection of vampire and blood and all of that. And he said the entity just vanished.
When you say vampiric entity, what does that mean?
Perhaps there's a lust for blood.
Oh.
in the entity, when they do all this entheogenic work with the plant-based altered consciousness, a lot of things come up of these kind of entities, these kind of energies.
And what happens once we imbibe Kali energy? Do we become like Kali, fierce and, mad and angry?
Most certainly we do, because it's like she made us in her likeness, and we then make ourselves in her likeness. It's who we worship is who we become. So that's why, in a way, it's better if you're just a grihastha, follow a Ma Lalita or follow a Ma Kamalatmika, and just find the bliss that you're seeking. Whereas if you're a tantric and you're really looking for those, you're doing the deep dive, you really want to burn out all the karma, you're ready. If you're going to drown in the river tomorrow, it's okay with you, then it's fine, go for it. Otherwise, exercise a lot of discretion and judiciousness.
Okay, let's come to the second goddess, Tara. Also, Tara, we do these yearly retreats in Ladakh, yoga retreats. That's the first time I came across Tara because the Buddhists call it Ma Tara.
Yes.
So it is very interesting because here you see two, I wouldn't say religions, because Buddhism and Hinduism would be way of lives, spiritual schools sort of, borrowing something from each other. So
Right.
Tell me the story about Tara.
Buddhist connection is that Buddhism and Tantra, they grew at the same time. So there is a lot of commonality. Like you see the mandalas in Buddhism, you see the yantras in Tantra. Now, Ma Tara, I think, is taken from the Dasha Mahavidyas, is borrowed by Buddhism from the Dasha Mahavidyas, where she becomes like the supreme goddess who they worship in the Vajrayana sect, if I'm not mistaken. And there's really nothing much that one knows about Ma Tara, except that she became more popular in the Buddhist segment. I think you had brought up a point about Ma Tara and how she brings about fluency, and how she was related to the Vak. But I want to contest you there, because in the Dasha Mahavidyas, it is with Ma Baglamukhi and Ma Matangi that we see this more. Baglamukhi is the one who gives you immense control over Vak. See, in the Sanatana tradition, the spoken word, the uttered word, is not just what we say. There are 4 parts to that. Para, Pashanti, Madhyama, then becomes Vaikari. So it starts with consciousness, then it starts to develop into an idea or a concept, then it becomes a sentence in your mind, and then you finally utter it out. So when something is as powerful as Vak, it has to be governed and very carefully used. So when we talk about Ma Baglamukhi, it is very useful for people who have talking as their profession, like lawyers, great orators. They worship Ma Baglamukhi. They have a mantra that they use to give them Vak Shakti, Vak Siddhi, and Vak Shuddhi. Right? So Shakti meaning the energy, Siddhi meaning they have the capability to utilize it how they will, and then Shuddhi meaning purity, which means no lies, no inauthentic stuff. So that becomes very important. So that is related more to Ma Bagalamukhi than with Ma Tara in our tradition. So perhaps because in Buddhism, she is the supreme goddess, they use her for all the purposes.
Let's come to Tripura Sundari.
She's the first Saumya goddess that we encounter, and she's the one who promises both bhoga and moksha, which is what is most interesting for the grihastha. Because while we are living, we want to enjoy all the pleasures of life. Ma Lalita itself means, Lalita means the one who just plays.
Okay.
And what does she play? It's the entire creation itself is her game. Like liken it to her having created all of us like parts of a video game. And her imagery is just so benign, so beautiful, that the Lalita Sahasranama mentions how her attributes in 1,000 names. So that's why when we say Shri Matre Namaha, that's the first line of the Lalita Sahasranama, Shri Mata, in the Namavali form. So it becomes Shri Matre Namaha, Shri Maharagni Namaha. And her iconography is that, of course, she's the most beautiful woman or being in the 3 worlds. The 3 worlds being waking, dreaming, sleeping. Also past, present, future. Because there are a lot of triads in Hinduism. Everything, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, the 3 gunas, the Vata, Pitta, Kapha, all the doshas. Everything is 3, 3, 3.
Why?
Because 3 eventually 3 into 3 multiply is equal to 9, which is the number of completion of fulfillment. So it could be any of the triads which eventually lead us to the fulfillment.
Always?
Always. Because after 9 comes what? It's 1 and a 0. So 9 is the ultimate. So it's Navagraha, you have Navadhanya, even the Navaratnas,
Yeah.
9 planets.
9 planets.
Everything
correct.
is 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the chakras, even though we say 7, essentially there are 9 chakras, 9 orifices in our body, 9 months of gestation for a baby to be born as a human.
Yeah. Because I had that question, the importance of the number 9.
We're coming into a 9-year with 2026. Or is this the year of number 9? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, we are in a year 9. Yeah. So perhaps that's why there's a lot of tumult all over the world, which is changing the world order. Because with 9 comes a change. It's like a changeover. And that's why you're seeing all this polarization across the world. And it means only one thing, that things will get better from here on. Because that's usually a sign of completion of a cycle. And apart from that, it's all, our religion is, it's when we chant a mantra 108 times.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
the distance between the sun and the moon. So all of that is 108. So that also adds up to a 9. And that's why we are told, even in the Shri Yantra, there are 9 avaranas. And it's the 9 stages of how we go through the spiritual progress. So everything is related to the number 9 because eventually that's what leads to completion.
Tripura Sundari, she's also known as Shodashi.
Shodashi.
Why?
Yes. Because if you look at the moon and you start with the Amavasya, you end with either the Purnima, or if you start with the Purnima, you end with the Amavasya. That's a 15-day cycle. So that's visible to the human eye. What comes after Panchadashi is the Shodashi. After the 15th Nitya is something which is so transcendent, it's beyond, it's para. You can't see it, but definitely there's an energy. And she is that energy, the Shodashi, the 16th energy. The 16th Nitya of the moon is Ma Lalita, which is so powerful that it's invisible. And the highest mantra in Sri Vidya is the Panchadashi, which a guru gives you. The Shodashi, you're supposed to intuit on your own. The 16th Bija will come to you.
That's if
On
she's
your
16
own.
years of age?
See, with Lalita, she grows. So we start with her as Bala Tripura Sundari, and then Shodashi is when she's at, the cusp of adulthood. She's at her most beautiful, shown as a 16-year-old. Again, to the same story with Shiva and his anger, and there's karma involved and all of that. And that's how Ma Lalita comes into the ashes that Kama's body leaves behind, turns into Bhandasura. And she has to vanquish Bhandasura. That's why Ma Lalita is born. The meaning of Kama's ashes turning into Bhandasura is anything which you leave desired, like you've not fulfilled your desire, will someday turn into a demon. That is why Tantra keeps saying, fulfill whatever desires you have.
And if there are unfulfilled desires, then don't take it as a grudge. Think of it as, part of the Leela.
Right.
And your karma playing out, and just be
That's
in a
right.
state of acceptance.
Exactly. Of surrender, Sharanagati.
Okay. Not hold it, basically.
Yes.
That's what.
And Lalita's iconography shows her with the pasha, the 4 things she holds in her hand. She's holding a noose, a gourd, then she holds a sugarcane bow. Sugarcane, again, that is a reference to Kama, because where else do you see a sugarcane bow? It's with Kama.
Okay.
Right? So even if the bow is crushed, it gives out sweetness. So she's like that. So it's like also a reminder for us, crush your ego and you will see sweetness. And the arrows are made of flowers. So it can't really hurt anyone.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the beauty of her iconography, which is described in the Saundarya Lahiri, in the Lalita Sahasranama, in so many of the works that we see of learned sages like Adi Shankara and so many others.
So Shri Yantra is very central to the Shodashi worship, correct? Yes. Please tell us about Shri Yantra.
So Shri Yantra try to connect with the source in 3 ways. One is with the Nama Rupa, which is the image, the Murti of Devi in her physical form. The second is through her sacred geometric form, which does not need language, it does not need any kind of understanding, it's just something at the level of consciousness. So, like we were speaking, has no cultural barriers. And then the third is the mantra. So, when we talk of the yantra associated with Ma Lalita is the Shri Yantra, which is also known as the Shri Chakra Yantra. And the mantras associated with her, starting from Bala Tripura Sundari mantra all the way to Shodashi mantra in the form of bijas. And in the other side, the stava, which is giving her praise, Lalita Trishati to Saundarya Lahiri to Lalita Sahasranama. So all of this together, the study of all of this comprises what is called Sri Vidya. Shri means abundance, Ashraya, one who gives us shelter. So the main message of Sri Vidya to women is that you seek validation from no one once you come under her umbrage. Because if she's giving you fearlessness, she's giving you knowledge, and she's giving you abundance, what more does anyone want? And what can a human give you? Which a god is giving you, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the point.
So the fourth Mahavidya or the fourth goddess is Bhuvaneshwari. What about her?
Bhuvaneshwari is a reminder for all of us to take care of the planet that we live on because she is Mother Earth itself. And especially with how we are approaching climate change and all of that, and not caring for the other beings on this planet. So, while as a species, we've made great strides today, we are the top of the AI game and all of that. As what happens to us as a civilization is the question we'll have to ask, that we are literally so close to self annihilation. So Bhuvaneshwari comes in here with the message that take care of the planet because this is the only one you have, and it reminds you to be very conscious of every decision you take pertaining to your environment.
So I think this becomes a fabulous time to then tap into Bhuvaneshwari's energy. Correct?
Yes.
And how can we do that?
Just look around yourself and see how you can cut down your carbon footprint. Make sure that if it's not needed use of plastic or resources, don't have children. I really mean this from a perspective of someone who's been there, done that. And it's just that I feel in today's world where we stand,
Yeah.
this is the best thing one can do for the planet and for oneself, particularly if you're on the path of spiritual evolution. Because why bring another creature into this world who will suffer even more than we could possibly know or understand? It's not fair on them.
Yeah.
And for your selfish reason, you bring a child into this world and then they suffer for you, and it doesn't play out well. I think that's the main message.
Correct. As per you, would adoption be a great thing given that there are so many children today who.
Very controversially, I'm going to say no. Because again, lived experience, seen it all, that you can't even trust your own genes. How do you trust the genes that you don't even know? And it doesn't play out well.
Yeah.
It's karmic again. It's,
Acha.
yeah, heavily karmic.
Really?
And I've never seen a happy story which came out.
Of an
And
adoption?
yes.
Okay.
I know I might even receive a lot of vitriol for it, but I'm not for it. I think just allow everyone's karma to play out. Who are we to go and play God and rescue the one who needs to be rescued?
Okay.
No ant in Africa goes starving in any case.
What about animals who are orphaned or maybe?
Animals are
Yeah.
a different story altogether
Okay.
because animals don't have karma like we do. Humans are the only form who have active karma because we have a highest elevated consciousness where we're asking all these questions. Animals don't ask these questions. Animals are not seeking spirituality or seeking God or seeking the source. So they have a limited sense of consciousness. So it is imperative that we help them. And it brings a lot of punya in helping them because they are mute, they cannot explain their difficulties. So if you're able to see what you can do for them, it brings immense goodwill and good karma.
Okay. So you would say an ideal path to maybe get divested of karma would be to not adopt a human child, but maybe to adopt one of those orphaned street animals.
Absolutely,
Because
yes.
even pedigree nowadays has become
Yes.
it's a very messy
Yeah.
story out there.
take care of cows, take care of all the animals on the planet. I was hearing a story about how elephants are so compassionate that when they have to move elephants from one country to another on a plane, and because elephants are such massive beings, they can tilt a plane effectively. So they put a whole bunch of chicks around in the elephant's enclosure. The elephant will not move until they reach the destination because they don't want to harm another chick. That is how careful they are. And here we are as humans with this elevated consciousness, and what are we doing with it? We are only damaging everything else on the planet.
I had a guest on our podcast who said that, and she said it behind the scenes, so I don't have it recorded. She said that couples or individuals who don't have children, it could be their last birth.
Yes. Yes.
Help me, if you agree with it, help me understand this.
I totally agree, because they're not creating any more karma in the process of living. So it is quite likely that they are on their path to moksha. See, with having a child, already you have created an attachment which is not going to end here. It's going to lead on to other things, because you're not going to be able to detach effectively from your own offspring. Very rarely does that happen, and you have to be a really spiritually
evolved soul.
adept and empowered soul to do that. But by and large, I would totally agree with that statement. So one more reason to not want a child in this world.
How are you creating karma when you have a child? Attachment, I get. What more?
Because it is also the playing out of your previous karma. See, that's the thing with karma. It's not a one time thing. So there's already some past karma which has brought you to this point. So the fact is, if there is no residual karma, there is no child in the picture. If there is residual karma, it comes in the shape of the child, and then that leads to more agami karma, which is the karma which we are creating. So let's look at it like a bank balance, right? So that is our sanchita karma. And then we bring a certain part of it, which is our prarabdha in this life. Our whole motive is to wash off all this prarabdha and go into a state where we are not, there is no life and death, the cycle. Now, with this prarabdha, you have children, you get entangled in this maya of living, then you are pushing that further away, the whole aspect of moksha. Because naturally, the fact is that the attachment is there, the connections are there, and because you want more for your child, that's when all the negative aspects start. The greed only starts when you want for your child. And if you notice, mostly until your child, if you're childless,
yeah.
you don't have that much greed. It's when a child comes into the picture, ye bhi chahiye, mere bacche ke liye wo bhi chahiye, and then the fight starts with the siblings, with the parents, with everyone, because now suddenly this is your ego saying this is my own and they are different. So that is how you create karma.
Mm-hmm. And why would, let's say, couple A or individual A have a child and couple B or individual B not have a child? Is it again their past?
Yes, it is. All of this is the soul contracts that we have made before we have taken this janma as a human. So there are a lot of lessons we need to learn, a lot of alignment with our goals that we set out when we came into this being. So until all of those lessons are learned, we are going to come back again and again until we align with our purpose.
We see a lot less kids being born today because a lot of millennials,
Right.
people my age are opting to be childless.
Right.
Do you think then the karmic pattern is suddenly shifting when it comes to this generation and going forward?
If you observe, it is the rising of the Shakti which is making this happen. It's because when Shakti rises, there will be a change. There will be an imminent shift in the way everyone thinks. And without that, evolution is not possible. And the millennials or the Gen Z or whoever it is who's choosing not to have children, they're doing it in a selfless manner, because if they were selfish, they could easily have the children, but they're choosing not to do it because for them there are other priorities, such as caring for the planet, caring for animals, taking care of the collective consciousness.
But a huge reason, unfortunately, why a lot of this generation don't want children is because of convenience. It's you have more for yourself. There is less hassle. Be very honest about
Right.
it. That is what's playing in our minds.
That's
for most of
perfectly
us.
acceptable. Look at the larger intent and look at the larger goal that you set out to achieve. Okay, so if you think that your at least you're not being selfish by having the child for your own benefit, for your own interest, thinking, okay, when I'm old, someone's going to take care of me. For me, that itself
Yeah.
is a big win. Beyond that, whatever else you accrue is just brownie points.
We're coming to another gory, darker side of the Devi, which is the Chinnamasta.
Chinnamasta, yes.
And she's someone who's decapitated her own head.
So the story goes that
Yeah.
she's walking with two of her friends on the riverside, and the friends are just irritating her, saying, "We are hungry, let's go back. We are hungry, let's go back." And then a point comes where she can't take it anymore, and she just takes her thumbnail and cuts herself. She literally decapitates, cuts off her own head, and then it flows in 3 fountains of blood. So she feeds the friends with 2 of the fountains, and from the Sushumna Nadi, what comes out, she drinks it herself and rejuvenates herself. So the whole point is that sometimes you will have to subdue your own ego in order for a larger purpose. And it's not always also about your own self. There are times when we might have to make the sacrifices. And that's what Chinnamasta stands for. Number one, on one side you have the ego, which is constantly seeking self-aggrandizement, and on the other hand, that sometimes we will have to make the sacrifices for the sake of the larger good.
Why is she drinking her own blood?
Because blood for us is something very gory, but if you look at the symbolism behind it, she is living off her own energy. She doesn't need it from anyone else. So she is consuming her own energy from her own Sushumna Nadi and then rejuvenating herself. Again, a message that don't look at the outside world for validation. Look at yourself and give yourself whatever validation you want. Because what is the outside world after all but what you perceive of it?
Okay. I also thought that the symbolism or the iconography of cutting off one's own head is also a sign of self-annihilation, which is supposed to be the highest virtue in spirituality, to be able to self-destruct, right? I think the entire story of Kirti Mukha, who basically ate up one of the Danavs, one of the Rakshasas, upon, Shiva commanded him, please go eat yourself up. And he literally did that.
Okay.
So he said, ki aapka to darja bhagwanon se bhi upar hona chahiye, which is why outside every temple you will have a face of the Kirti Mukha, that red fellow with teeth.
Right.
But the teeth actually not the teeth, they're the 2 hands sticking out of the mouth. Because when Shiva saw, he'd already eaten himself neck under the neck. So you see, mostly all South Indian temples will have a
Yes.
Kirti Mukha and then you enter the Garbhagriha. Many homes have Kirti Mukha, truck lorries have Nimbu, Mirchi and Kirti Mukha.
That's to keep the evil eye away.
So Kirti Mukha essentially means the glorious face. He says a person who can eat himself up should be above all gods, because even gods have their own limitations and their own realities. But you have none. You're eating yourself up. You're destroying yourself. So I think a good parallel to this in spirituality, in yogic sciences, we say is Brahma Muhurat mein utho. Wake up in the morning. Your body doesn't want to wake up.
Right.
Take a cold water shower. Eat meals 2 times a day. Don't just keep eating. So I think that whole thing about getting over one's limitations,
Yes.
I thought maybe that is also...
Yes, that is how we subdue the ego, by cutting off the head, because the head is our calling card.
Yeah.
Our faces are our calling cards to the world. How else does the world know us? So if you cut off your head, what happens? You're subduing your ego. And that's the big lesson from there.
The goddess of terror, Bhairavi?
Yes, terror, but not as terrorizing as Ma Kali's imagery. A little more subdued version, but still enough to create a sense of fear, a sense of mystery, and one which is necessary for everyone who wants the right mix of Ugra and Saumya in their life, which is what every woman should be looking at, because how else do we counter the violence that we see? And the main lesson from Bhairavi is not that violence begets violence, but that we should use it effectively to bring about some changes and to motivate us to do something positive with every negative situation that we face.
Okay. What is the origin story behind Bhairavi?
Largely that she's seen as the consort of Bhairava. And Bhairava, which is a less complex version than Ma Kali, but still retaining the terror aspect, retaining the fierceness.
If we look at her iconography, she's naked. She's covered in snakes.
Yes, she's covered in snakes.
One can almost say that she's on the cusp, somewhere in between Shiva and Kali.
Exactly. That's why the name Bhairavi. It's almost the snakes signify all the desires that surround her. and slowly she has to let go of one at a time. And it's a scary blue color in which she's shown again naked, because in a way it's like Shiva. He's like the Keshan, the wanderer. He's not bothered about what anyone will say, and she brings that same imagery to mind, that she's unconcerned. This is who I am. This is, take it or leave it. And the only thing that covers her is all the desires which need fulfillment.
The next goddess is Dhumavati.
Yes. A very interesting one. Here is a widow, perhaps in the latter years of her life, where she's done with her, she's a, probably her children have thrown her out of the house, and she's seen living in the smashana, and she's seen sitting on a chariot with a broken wheel, which means that the chariot cannot move forward, and she's wearing ragged clothes. And Dhuma means smoke. So she's got these, the perception that she views the world with is a very smoky one. It's not a clear one. It's one which is clouding her perception. That's what smoke does. It makes your vision cloudy. And it just goes to show, number one, that this is a situation all of us are going to end up in life with. There is going to be anguish, there is going to be loss, there is going to be grief. There's no getting away from it. And what is the message there? You see her holding a winnow where she can separate what's good from what's bad, what's evil from what's good for her, and so on and so forth, if she chooses to do that. If she just chooses to sit with the winnow on that broken chariot and sit in the smashana, she can sit there forever and not evolve. But the underlying message is that even at times of such intense grief and sadness, there lies an opportunity for you to embrace spirituality and to evolve and grow. And then perhaps now is the time for you to embrace brahmacharya and to become more of a sadhak than you have ever had an opportunity. Because now, even though you have not done it with your own volition, all the attachments are gone.
Either people have died or they've left your home,
Yes.
they've settled down.
It's Ma's way of calling you to her and saying, now come and do my sadhana. And what better place to do the sadhana when you're nearing death than to do it in a smashana?
Okay, so I should be tapping the energies of Dhumavati towards the latter years of my life.
If at all you want to tap it. See, because these are just there to give you the wisdom. You don't have to live every experience. It's just learn from what they are trying to tell you.
Okay. This is another Kali-like.
Yes.
She's pulling out someone else's tongue this time. Baglamukhi.
It's a demon's tongue, a demon who is trying to destroy the cosmic order, which is what we always see. See, these demons, we have to understand, are not just external mythical figures. They point to something within us, because most often, Shloka ji, the greatest damage that we do in relationships comes from our tongue, from what we say, from what we hear from other people. So this is a message that have control over what you say, and also have the discretion to know what is important when it is said and what to just throw away and not take too seriously. So this is tambana in a way, that is to paralyze also, which means that you should be such a great orator using her, invoking her energies, that you're able to just paralyze your enemies merely with your words. So literally, what does a great lawyer do? He'll just stump you. Or a great orator like Winston Churchill. He could change the course of the World War too, right? With just merely the speech. So that is what Ma Baglamukhi tries to teach us, that be careful in what you say, be perceptive about what is being said, the tonality, the words that people use. Allow it only to affect you as much as is necessary.
Okay. I think here is where we talk about the Uchishta.
Yes.
The Devi.
Right.
Matangi.
Yes. Matangi is the Tantric version of Ma Saraswati. So there is no greater energy than that of Saraswati, simply for one reason. That when we say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, that light can only come from knowledge, from Vidya, from Jnana. There is no other way. Bhakti will not give you that knowledge. It might give you an experience of the spiritual, but it will not give you that viveka, will not arise in you unless you have the knowledge, that discrimination to know what is right, what is wrong. That will only come with Ma Saraswati. And that is why Ma Matangi is so important. And here, the message which I personally see as relevant to today's world is we are all creative in our own ways. Every single woman, man on this planet, we don't use it either because of some self limiting belief or because someone has told us you're no good at it. It is to use it to build a side hustle. And perhaps that is what is going to give you meaning in your later years in life. Because the one problem I see is for the empty nesters, they have nothing to live for. But if you had pursued your creative vision, in your 60s, in your 70s, you have something that you can work upon and which lends your life a purpose and a meaning. With Ma Matangi, it's the creative urge that we all have, which is perhaps there for everyone, and how we have to mobilize it and work upon it. Because if you leave it to itself, it's going to go waste and go with us to the grave. So instead of that, do something with it. If you think you're a singer, let the world say that you're not, but you work on it. And if you are a good singer, then maybe you can start singing classes online or see how you can turn it into some kind of revenue stream for yourself. Not because you need the money, but because you're putting that creativity out there for the world to learn from.
Okay, so this could be the book writing, it could be either being an artist, painting, dancing, anything.
Anything, whatever you're good at. If you're good at making stuff, like the hand little, whatever,
Candles or whatever,
candles or even little motifs, giveaway
Even
gifts,
if it is
whatever.
not needed, even if it is not
Even
needed.
if
For
it is
example,
not
there are
needed.
lots of interior, I'm just giving an example,
Right.
lots of artists, lots of interior designers. So
That-
mostly people in creative professions do it for themselves, right? For their satisfaction and fulfillment.
Right. So, whatever lends value to the creative field. It could even be if you're a great cook, then put it out there. Start a small catering business, something which will give you a purpose and a meaning in life. Because the biggest problem that I see is women, especially who are stay at home moms, they feel so purposeless, especially when the kids are grown up and they're like, what is the meaning of all of this? So, if you're able to pursue something and make it a passion, then at least you have something to look forward to.
It is said that Matangi accepts uchishta, which
Yes.
is leftover or impure food, as offerings.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about
Yes,
this?
certainly. Like we were speaking earlier, two gods who are known as Uchishta, which came about as a rebellion against the immense purity which the Vedic method always demanded. And this was like something which is touched with the human saliva is not to be offered to God. Tantra said saliva is very important, it's necessary, and the gods do not turn it away. And the gods accept it, and we see that in Uchishta. She is called Uchishta Chandali, where because the Varnas, the lowest segment of society, they were left out from everything.
Yeah.
So this was where they brought them back in the fold by saying, look, here is a goddess who will even welcome you. And there's, of course, Uchishta Ganapati, which we spoke about earlier. So these are the two forms which are very, very subversive and which the traditional puritanical follower of Vedas will really look down upon. But it's all acceptable in Tantra. It's all a part of.
So casteism and all, I don't think ever held any sway in Tantra, right? I could have been a Shudra getting married to a Brahmin, it would have been perfectly fine. Am I right?
Yes, and they would have encouraged it because they were trying to see what was happening was because of casteism. Hinduism lost a lot of people to Buddhism, and that's when Tantra rose to counter the influence of Buddhism to keep people in the fold of Hinduism. And that's why today, if you see what we follow as Sanatana, is less Vedic, it's more Pauranic, more tantric, because there were no temples in the Vedic times. The temples came with the Tantra Shastra, with the Agamas. And so, if you observe all our rituals and everything that we do, they're tantric, they're Pauranic, with a sprinkling of the Vedic. But this is what is not known. Tantra is always known as something which is very dark and occult and all of that. Without knowing it, we are all practitioners of Tantra.
Let's come to the last one, which is Kamala.
Yes, the tantric version of Ma Lakshmi. She promises abundance, she promises prosperity, and we've come a full circle. We started with Ma Kali, who's the devourer of time, to Ma Kamalatmika, who essentially gives you all that you need to make adequate use of your time on this planet. And with her comes the pleasure of being, the aesthetics, the beauty, the joy of everyday existence itself. And it's what you make of it. It's come with an abundant mindset, leave the scarcity behind, and just enjoy this Leela for what it's worth. And not take anything too seriously as long as the going is good.
Okay. I think there are about 15 temples of the Dasa Mahavidyas, and they're not very famous in that sense. I believe Tarapeeth is one of the temples which attracts about 1 million followers on a yearly basis. So I was telling you, my mother's a very ritualistic person, goes to all temples, visits all religious sites, but even she's someone who's not very well adept with the Dasha Mahavidya or the Dasha Mahavidya temple. Despite being such a potent tradition, why do you think there is such less emphasis and such less visibility when it comes to Dasha Mahavidya?
Because it's a part of the tantric tradition, and tantra itself has such a bad name. It has earned a reputation of being mystical, occult, dark, and it's a misrepresentation essentially. And when you're talking about the temples, like even Kamakhya has all the Dasha Mahavidya temples on the Neelanchal hills. For those who are on the path of tantra, the Dasha Mahavidyas make sense. For the others who are more on the Pauranic or the Vedic path, which is what generally everyone is on, it's more to do with Navadurga and the more benign, submissive forms of the goddesses. So that's the reason. And also, Dasha Mahavidyas are immensely potent. And you need a lot of willpower and self assurance to even learn about them. Because look at the iconography. With Chinnamasta, for example, the iconography is with her head cut off and with it coming out as a fountain, and she's drinking her own blood. And she's doing all of this on a couple who's having sex. So, this kind of imagery is itself very, very powerful, scary, perhaps not everyone's cup of tea. So, if one builds temples or one worships at such temples, obviously it's going to be a very small portion of the population who's going to feel comfortable with that.
What is the reason behind such symbolism, such extreme forms of, and extreme and even darker forms of symbolism?
It's because it shows us one aspect of life which we try to cover up by calling it taboo, by not coming to terms with it. But ultimately, without it, where do we stand? Without sexuality, without the creative urge, the energy, karma, lust, we wouldn't be here. And that is what we should transcend. We shouldn't just look at it as desire. It's not just a feeling, it's something that you have to transmute into spiritual experience. Ultimately, that is the main goal.
When we look at such imagery, right, whether it is the extreme sexuality, whether it is whatever we think it is perverted sexuality, you're saying it shouldn't be seen in the literal sense.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Or should it also be seen in the literal sense and said, this is also okay? If you do this, this is also fine.
I think they meant it more as the fact that treat desire as a very important component of life, but overcome it.
And also peripheral component of life, right?
It is peripheral if you look at it that way. It's if it's important for you in a certain stage in life, it's fine. It's great to experiment, do whatever it is, but finish it. Don't leave anything untouched. This is the main message of Tantra, that if you've not tasted something, then you're always going to have the desire to know what that was. And you will never be at peace with yourself. So, if you've done all that you set out to do, then you can walk away into the mountains one day and say, okay, life well lived. But if you've not tried, even on that mountain, you're going to be thinking, okay, when I was 25, I should have tried this. So that is what the Tantra texts are trying to tell you to do. That when the occasion arises and when the opportunity arises, you experience it, whatever it is, with consciousness, with presence of mind, and by with a sense of surrender that I'm not doing this for my personal pleasure, but I want to see what comes of it from a spiritual standpoint.
Okay, okay. So let's say I want to know the answer from the tantric text, the Dasha Mahavidya. Let's say there are people who have regrets, right? Maybe not so much in the 20s, like we were just having a conversation and you said, जो शनि का प्रभाव है 35 के बाद आता है. So the Shani, the Saturn begins to get activated post 35, and that's when karma sort of starts showing up in different shapes and sizes, and regrets sort of keep piling on thereafter, right? I wish in my 25s I would have done this, either married that person or not married, or maybe experimented, whatever. If we are at that stage of life, which we think many of us would have some regrets, right? We could have done
As
this or that.
humans, we ought to have.
Correct. So in case we are there, and which I think most of us are, what is the resolution as per the Tantric texts. Abhi, we can't go back. We can't go back in time. We can't undo the decisions that we've made in
Right.
life. Now, what do we do?
I would mix Tantra and Karma to some extent here to give you an answer. At that point of time, that was the best you knew with your limited knowledge. And that was the best decision you could take based on your knowledge at that point of time. So, if you look at it from that angle, there's nothing to regret in this life. Everything is aligning you towards becoming the individual that you are today. So the regret, perhaps, is being played out in some alternate dimension, in some reality. So it's not like it's not happened at all. Perhaps it has. But your takeaway has to be that this has made me who I am. Even the regret has molded you. And this is the main lesson that we get mainly from Bhairavi in the Dasha Mahavidyas. Because if you're angry about something, use that anger as a motivation. So someone says something nasty about you. Use that and say, okay, I will do this and I will succeed at what they said I cannot, and show them. Like someone says you can't write or you can't speak, then use that. Don't allow the negativity to get to you. Subvert it into a positive thing for yourself, motivational self talk, if you may, and convert it and see how much magic comes from it. So, this is Ma Bhairavi's lesson for all of us.
Okay, but as you mentioned, right, if I go to the mountain, let's say a decision of get married or not, for example, because you were discussing this earlier. Should I get married or not, right? We've chosen, let's say person A has chosen one path, and now they've, that act has happened a couple of years down the line. They could be reflecting back on their decision and saying, I wish I had taken up, let's say, I wish I had not gotten married, or I wish I had gotten married. वो कसर तो है ना अंदर. Now what do you do with that regret or that apprehension?
Understand that it was karma playing out, that a runanubandha was at play, and that's why the marriage had to happen. The union had to happen. So now if you forcibly break away or separate,
which many people are doing, by the way, today's
which
times.
is also perfectly acceptable. Just
Okay.
remember that it will continue to play out until you have learnt your lesson.
Okay.
So, in this lifetime, you feel, I cannot put up with this person. Let's just separate on paper, legally, all of that. Remember that your karma doesn't finish. It will take it on to another lifetime, perhaps, to remove the runanubandha. Until you live it out, until you learn all the life lessons from that relationship. And the moment that is over, then you will not be united again.
Acha. So if I'm, let's say, getting divorced from, my husband, the story doesn't end here.
No.
It may come back to me again.
It will come back to you again. And if you observe the patterns, Shloka ji, like when I'm guiding people, I know that a person who's had a divorce, it doesn't end there. They will go through 2-3 more divorces.
I've seen that, yeah.
They've not learned their lesson. And even before, I see this in divorces all the time, where they haven't even gotten over this relationship, they're already looking around for a similar person. So then why get out of that? Because you're stuck in that pattern. So you're going to fall into that same pattern all over again because you've not learned your lessons from there.
So at what point does an individual know whether they're supposed to stay in a relationship or walk out of the relationship? When do they know that the lesson has been learned?
If the lesson is learned, then there will be a clear separation, perhaps by death or perhaps by circumstances which are not in your control.
Like you haven't taken the step to divorce the person.
That's correct. So
Acha.
If you take the step, it's on your karma. Yeah,
Okay.
and if the other person takes the step, then it's on that individual.
Okay. It is said that chanting these Mahavidya mantras on your own can be quite dangerous because there have been instances of people getting mad or just basically going off the rocker when they've attempted something of this nature. So why is chanting without proper initiation or under Guru's guidance so dangerous?
Because you don't know what energies you will bring to the forefront when you do it without a guidance. See, it's like a guru will prep you. He will ready your energy and he will ensure that even physically you are prepared for what is to come. If you do this without hand holding, it's like giving an atom bomb to a monkey. How does it know what to do with that? With the power, the immensity of what can be the outcome. It's exactly like that. So that is why it is necessary to do it in the right way, if at all you're so drawn towards it. First of all, just learn about it. It's enough. Don't feel the necessity to do any kind of sadhana for the Dasha Mahavidyas if you're not seeking to be on the path of Tantra. stick with the Saumya goddesses, stick with the Sri Vidya or with the Devi Mahatmya and all of those processes. And if you feel that a point comes in your life where you cannot hold off the Dasha Mahavidyas, because remember that anything that you do of this nature is expedition of karma. It will be speeding up your own karma. And what does karma do when it speeds up? It burns more. There's more tapasya, there is more of the pain, the heartache, all of that which comes. So, unless you're ready for all of that, don't dabble in these things, don't indulge.
I'm glad you mentioned this because the popular conception is that if I'm into sadhana or yoga, very simply put, it's all about well-being, but it's actually not. When you get into sadhana, intense sadhana especially, your karma's on fast forward and suddenly your life is going haywire, right? Whether it is, like I suffered health-wise,
True.
maybe someone else suffered something else.
Yes.
So explain that concept to the viewers, and I want this, intention to be debunked, not to discourage anyone, but karma is going to take form sooner or later, right? So might as well get it done and over with as soon as possible so that it's
But are
easier
you
ahead.
ready for it? Because what can happen to you in 20 years, happening to you in 2 months, can be intensely painful and can bring a lot of grief, not only to yourself, but to those who are connected to you through the Runanubandha. So you have to be ready to see your closest ones suffer, which is not something that we should do. Unless, of course, all of this is in some way also karmic and preordained. But my advice to people who want to get on the spiritual path and seek it as an escape is, it is not an escape. If anything, it will only create more difficulties for you, not simplify your life. But yes, it will eventually lead you towards moksha and help you to burn off all of the karmas. So that's a conscious, judicious decision you have to take as to whether you're ready for the pain that it brings, for the heartache, for all the losses, and for that, it's like a seismic shift. Every earthquake possible will occur.
Among the Shakta texts, Lalita Sahasranam is supposed to be the crown jewel. Tell me about Lalita Sahasranam and how is it such an integral part of the Dasha Mahavidya?
Lalita Tripura Sundari is pretty much the crown jewel of the Dasha Mahavidyas.
And it's done miraculous things, you told me. It's done
Yes.
miraculous things for people who follow it.
Absolutely. And there are millions of people who will vouch for this. Every single individual, perhaps today, who you see at the cusp of greatness, at least emanating from the south, they have some connection with Ma Lalita and with the Lalita Sahasranama, which is chanted across the south. And that connection with Lalita is very deep for everyone in South India. Pretty much every CEO today who comes from the south,
Okay.
trust me, they're chanting the Lalita Sahasranama and they're taking the benefits of the Falashruti of the Lalita Sahasranama. The top doctors, the top people today in the world who originate from South India. You can ask them.
Okay, can you tell us more about the Lalita Sahasranam? What is it
It's
exactly?
the 1,000 attributes of Ma Lalita, and it is given by Sage Hayagriva, not Lord Hayagriva. Lord Hayagriva is Vishnu himself. So Vishnu says, I cannot give it to Agastya. So he creates a sage in his likeness who he gives the same name to as Hayagriva. And then Sage Hayagriva gives this knowledge to Sage Agastya. And Agastya and his wife Lopamudra are two of the foremost Sri Vidya sadhakas to have ever lived on this planet. And in fact, when Hayagriva is giving this knowledge to Agastya, he says, I'm only giving it to you because you're Lopamudra's husband.
Okay.
Because she is the greater devotee.
Okay.
And it lists the 1,000 attributes of Ma. Starting from the first word itself, there's a beautiful hidden meaning. The first line is Shri Mata. Okay, that itself holds the esoteric Shodashi mantra.
Ah.
So enough said about that. And then it goes on to talking about all the Kundalini Shaktis. It talks about all the energies that exist, the Nadis, and then about life itself through the various processes and through the various body parts and everything that needs to be covered to understand life in a more wholesome way. And all done in such poetic beauty that it is unparalleled.
It is said that Lalita Sahasranam can provide both materialistic pleasures and spiritual liberation, breaking the cycle of life and death.
True.
Which is such an odd combination, but such a win-win
Yeah,
combination.
bhoga and moksha.
Yeah.
Bhoga moksha pradayaka.
Yeah.
Because while you're alive, you work towards the pleasures, and then through the pleasures, you also work towards moksha by acting in a dharmic fashion, by not accruing greater karma, and then slowly moving into a space of complete samadhi.
Okay.
If nothing else, at least listen to the Lalita Sahasranama. Of course, it's not going to give you the same benefits as chanting it. I would say it's like if there's yummy food cooking, at least you can get savor the aroma. You might not be able to taste it, but at least savor the aroma. It's the same with listening to it. And then with listening will come the desire to learn it.
Okay.
And then you will want to understand it. So it just becomes the unraveling of the 1,000 petals of the Lalita Sahasranama.
Okay.
So the starting point will be just start to listen to it and listen to the melody, the mellifluousness, the poetic beauty, and see if you're not moved, if you're not swayed by it.
Why is it chanted every Friday?
Friday is the day associated with Shukra, Venus. And Venus is the planet of beauty, of femininity, of the charm, the grace. So there's a synchrony of the energies of Lalita and what the planet Venus, Shukra brings, right? So that's why Friday is auspicious for anything to do with Devi. Most of Devi sadhana is best done in the night because, like we spoke, why do we call it Navratri and not Navdin? Because it is meant to be practiced in the night, because the energy is heightened in the night with the moon in the sky. See, we might not know the effect, the impact the moon is having on the female body, particularly because we have more water retention and all of that. So, and also our cycles are very closely associated with the moon. So, it's all of these connections coming together. Evenings are better for sadhana, any Devi sadhana. And Fridays is great for Lalita Sahasranama. Also, the special days of our life, like birthdays, anniversaries, all these kind of days, like the New Year, for example, and Diwali, Navratri, the main festivals.
Now, coming to Navratri, since you're at that time of the month, firstly, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that there are 4 Navratris. Tell me about this.
There are 4 Ritu Sandhis which occur every year, which is the change of season. So it is a time when the energy is elevated, and also the moon after the Amavasya, it's going into from Pratipada all the way to the Dashami day. That is when it is the most heightened. 4 Navratris come at the time of the change of seasons in no particular order. The most important, which is the Prakat Navratri, is the Sharat Navratri, which occurs in the month of Ashwin. And the other 3 are more Tantric Navratris. So there is one which is the Ashada Navratri, where Ma Varahi is worshipped. There's one in Magha, which is one of complete stillness, because it happens in the winter months, so all the animals are in hibernation, and it calls upon us also to go into that mode of just sadhana. And then the Chaitra Navratri, which is the coming of spring itself. So these are the 4. The importance of worshipping from Amavasya, the day after Amavasya, from Pratipada till Navami, is because in these 9 nights, the heightened feminine energy in the sky, as the moon waxes and becomes bigger and bigger, our Shakti also rises with it. And especially the one which occurs in this month of Ashwin, the day and night are pretty much equal, which is called liminal, which adds more value to the energy which is being created. So that's why, of all the Navratris, this is the most auspicious.
Okay. And why is it that 9 days after Amavasya, the feminine becomes the most potent?
Because that's when the moon is rising, and if you correlate the activities or the energies of a woman, so going back to why it's important, it's because the energy is rising, the Shakti is rising with the rising moon. And Ashtami is the day, the 8th day, when it is at its height, and then Navami. From there, it kind of, the masculine energy starts to take over, is what the texts tell us. Specifically how, we don't know, but this is what is hinted at. So that's why it's more powerful to do Shakti worship in these nights.
Okay. And I'm also assuming the feminine element rises within
Yes.
males and females both.
Yes, absolutely.
So maybe ninth night after Amavasya, we are more, people in general, the world is more feminine tilted, right?
Possibly. On the 8th is perhaps at its height, and then ninth slowly the masculine starts to take over, and for the rest of the month, it's the masculine energy which plays out.
We'd like to know some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to Navratri. And if you can give our viewers, they've been really looking forward for this, a step-by-step routine as to what can be done during these 9 days of the Navratri.
Depending on whether you want to make it very ritualistic or whether you want to just do the Manasika sadhana. Both are perfectly acceptable. For some people, the rituals make sense. So you can do like a 16-step ritual where you invoke the Devata or the Devi in this case, and then you bathe her, and then you literally take her through all the Shringara, and then you give her some Naivedya and offer her food like a guest. You welcome her. Or you could do the Pancha Puja, where you're invoking the 5 elements. So that is, you offer Gandham, Pushpa. Gandha is sandalwood, Pushpa is flower, incense, Thupa, Deepa, and that's the Arghya. And then finally the Naivedya. So that is the Pancha Puja. That's the simplest puja we can do, which we do in all homes. And if you're able to do that on the 9 nights, just light a beautiful silver diya, and at least start with that, because what you start in these and practice for these 9 nights might stay with you for life if you see that something good is coming out of it. So in a way, it's neural conditioning, neural training.
And morning to night, the dinacharya, do you have something to offer there?
Certainly, if you can fast, because fasting really adds to your sankalpa, to the intention setting, and shows your seriousness of intent. So, and it's a great time to fast because it also elevates your immunity, increases immune bodies within you, and ensures that you go through the season illness free.
Okay.
So, in terms of
also the change in
dinacharya,
season, like
yes.
yeah.
So, dinacharya would be to just ensure that you, at least for those 9 nights, try to wake up at the Brahma Muhurta and try to do something which is a little uncomfortable, like take a cold shower, and make sure you do the stuff you need to do to increase your immunity, like having your turmeric shot or your ginger shot, and eat sattvic food, stay away from for a little while at least, the alcohol, the caffeine, the non-vegetarian food. Possibly, if you want to take it one step further, avoid onion, garlic, so that you're less, the rajas is not too much, and you're invoking more of the sattva. Navratri now has become more of a cultural scene than a religious one with the Garbha. Actually, the Garbha started as an agrarian ritual where diya would be set in the center of a field, and men and women would dance around it in a circle. And the Garbha literally means the womb, and giving thanks to Shakti for giving us this Mother Earth from whose womb the harvest is coming, and just overall an ode to creativity. So now that has become what we know in popular culture as the Garbha, and the evenings of feasting and fun and frolic, which is great because it does bring people together. If you look at it, Diwali is very family oriented, or at the most, you're meeting with friends and probably playing cards and invoking Lakshmi. Ganapati, when we do the Ganesh Chaturthi, that is only community oriented. They might put up the little pandals and do all of that, which Lokmanya Tilak ji started to bring Hindus together. So if you look at it, only one festival which is done at the level of collective consciousness, like see how it's done in West Bengal, and so many thousands of people come together, and millions literally are worshipping at the same time. So this is the only one left. Like in Mysore, we have the Dasara, the 10 days where the entire city, it's called Nada Habba. And not only from the city, but people from close by areas come. And it's the kings who, because Chamundi is the Grama Devi there. So that's their way of giving her thanks. And how it's become such a cultural phenomenon, and affecting so many collectively. So that's the only festival effectively which transcends all these other barriers of and doesn't stay small, doesn't stay within your family and friends, but moves on to a higher level.
Okay. So in Devi worship, there are methods of invoking the divine feminine in different parts of the body.
Yes. So with the Karanyasa is invoking her in your fingers, because the fingers are effectively meridians and all the nerve endings are here. And then we have Anganyasa, which is Shadanganyasa in this case, that is in the 6 different parts of the body, in the Hridaya, in the head, in the Shikha, and so on and so forth, like Kavacham and so on. So essentially, what in Devi Sadhana, the thought is you don't need to go to a temple. Your body itself is the temple. So your Garbha Gudi, the Griha, is inside your heart. So you can just address her where she's sitting as the Bindu in the Shri Yantra.
Okay.
So
But this
that
is only true for females or even males?
it's true for any sadhana. You can do this. See, like every Brahmin who does the Sandhya Vandanam knows that they're doing the Anganyasa, Karanyasa. So they are invoking that which is divine within themselves and presenting it to themselves.
Can you tell us the method of invoking in different parts of the body?
That is again best taught by a guru, because just invoking will not serve any purpose. There is a method and there is a mantra and there is a complete terminology behind it, which needs to be learnt appropriately.
Give me some more occult or mystical insights when it comes to Dash Mahavidya.
For occult, I have had greater experiences with Ma Varahi for some reason than with the Dasha Mahavidyas. Perhaps because I have not actively pursued the Dasha Mahavidyas as a sadhana. But Ma Varahi sadhana came very naturally to me, and I think many people look at me as being able to bring that energy. So I've heard a lot of stories from people. Like there was this gentleman who was one of the very first people to get COVID in London, and he was on his literally on the ventilator on his deathbed, and he heard the doctors telling his family that he's going to pass away tonight. And he was young, I think 30-year-old at that time, and he says, because I had nothing to lose in that state, I just prayed randomly to some god. He's a Sikh, and he says that in his dream, when he woke up, he remembered that it was Ma Varahi who came to him. And the magical part is he knows her mantra, which he downloaded in that dream. And why I know that it's not a mantra he's gotten off the internet is because it's the Tantric version, which only a guru can give to a shishya. And he said he waited for 5 years to share this story with someone, because people would just laugh at him and all of that. And then finally, he shared it with me, and he said, this is my experience with Ma Varahi. And this is just one. I hear so many people talking about how much they are getting out of the sadhana with Ma Varahi. So people who, she's definitely going to give you a lot of abundance in terms of property, and especially if you're in real estate, and all of these energies work in certain careers more than in others. So Ma Varahi, I see, when people want a certain home, and then they do a sadhana, then somehow magically, miraculously, it does become theirs. So these kind of stories.
Any tips that you would have for the viewers with respect to manifesting these gifts of Ma Varahi?
Of any of the Devis or from the source itself, is to find that connection. Whatever it takes, use the tools that Tantra gives you, whether it's the yantra, the mantra, the mudra, Kundalini Shakti. Study it, understand it, and then become that manifestation machine, and you're unstoppable.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
But do it not because you want some siddhis, but simply because even if you just want it as an experience, it's fine to just want to know what lies beyond our everyday ordinary life. But seek it in the right channels through the right teachers, and don't get carried away by it, and don't do it for egoic reasons.
Okay.
So you are not a recipient of that karma in your coming lives, at least.
I was just having a very funny visual where, the husband and wife are together and they're like, no, do something so that he ends up taking the action instead of me, so that karma us pe lage.
That also happens. A lot of people try that as well.
Yeah.
But then that again is an intention. So that plays out too.
Oh, nice. Okay, super. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vinita ji. We've had a long conversation, and there's so much that I've learned, honestly, from you, both in the conversation, behind the scenes. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Shloka ji. It was truly my privilege to be here and have this conversation with you. And I wish that this festive season with Navratri and Diwali bring abundance to everyone who's tuning in, and special love and blessings to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Shri Matre Namaha.
In case you'd like to be a part of our online and in-person yoga, diet and spiritual programs, you can join our WhatsApp group below, where we post all our upcoming programs and give free tips on health, diet and lifestyle.